I'm just kind of incredibly confused on like whether or not you have reading comprehension skills, because it really feels like you do not. Hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well, because I know that I am. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something very exciting. I'm going to be reacting to negative reviews of my favorite books on Goodreads. So I've seen this video floated around booktube a couple times and I always thought that it was absolutely hysterical, so I decided to give it my own go. So without further ado, we'll jump into the first book, which is going to be Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. Those of you who have been watching the channel for a while know that I absolutely love her, especially her Last Hours series. Chain of Iron is the second installment in this trilogy. It came out this March and it follows a group of teenage friends in Victorian England getting up to demon hunter shenanigans and falling into love triangles, right? So like, it's kind of like an absurd premise, but if you go in with those expectations, I think it delivers all of the perfect teenage angst and action and romance, and it's just perfection. And so I'm going to be reading opinions of people who don't agree with that. So first, I feel like this was just a big chunk of nothing. Nothing? I remember quite a lot happening. I'm already like confused by her perspective. I feel like this was a big copy and paste of book one. Excuse me? The same plot, the same relationship trauma, same villains, etc. Okay, well, same plot because there's an overarching plot for 3 books. That's what happens in a trilogy. Have you read a series before? And then same relationship drama. Yeah, because she didn't like put new characters in there. Like, if you've been in love with someone for your whole life, just because the first book in the series ends doesn't mean you're gonna get over that crush. Like, first of all, that's unrealistic. Have you ever read a romance series before? And secondly, I think the relationships that were defined in Chain of Gold were elevated and expanded upon quite well in this book. Like, I didn't feel like the relationships were facing the same kinds of hurdles, and new obstacles were put in place, and there were also like new relationships being explored, and like, I just like don't agree. Did you read the last 50 pages? Like, that's not at all like what happened in Chain of Gold. Like, that was like, there were quite a few big twists in the relationships, so cannot agree. Same villains, literally no. Like, literally no. So no. They're dealing with the same overarching problem for the duration of the series, which means, yeah, like there are a couple villains that like make repeat appearances, but like there is a larger problem driving this plot that does not occur in Chain of Gold. Like, there are significant differences to the plot and the villains and the characters. So like, I'm just kind of incredibly confused on like whether or not you have reading comprehension skills, because it really feels like you do not. And then she says that she wants 2 of the characters to get into a sapphic relationship. I'm so sorry about the construction noise. If I could make it go away, I would, but I've been dealing with it all day and I also want to die. So we're in this boat together and we will sail through the drilling noises. Anyway, so she says that she wants Lucy and Grace to end up together in a relationship. Now, over the course of Chain of Iron, these 2 have developed an unlikely friendship, but not because they have anything in common or they should be working together, but rather because they're both selfish and have short-sighted goals that happened to align. And so they had to work together because they were both working towards the same incredibly stupid goal. And like, their motivations weren't even the same. Like, they were working together because they had to, not because they were like, oh man, this girl, she really knows what's up. For this girl to be like, oh yeah, those 2 who had a horrible friendship that ended in like a huge problem, they should date because they clearly should be no. So like, I'm just beyond this pairing. It makes no sense to me. And like, if that's the reason that you're gonna rate this 1 star, then like, I think you're the one with 1-star taste. Another lady said, I love all the demon hunter scenes, but I can't stand a novel with more drama than is possible in real life. Do you know what you picked up when you went to the bookstore, ma'am? Like, if you wanted a hard-hitting contemporary, then like, you should have known from the cover that this wouldn't be for you. Like, of course there's extra drama. It's a YA romance. Like, it's a fantasy romance. Of course there's going to be angst and like action and like too much political scheming and like all of these like little things that like put together make it feel a little absurd if you wanted to look at it as being realistic. But I don't think anyone in the history of literally ever has picked up a Cassandra Clare book and been like, I'm gonna learn about what humanity's really like today. Can't wait to like read some like hard-hitting examination of the human condition. Like, if that's what you were looking for, then you clearly weren't the target audience for this, and it's on you for not having the critical thinking skills to look at the cover and be like, maybe this isn't for me. All right, before I get even more angry about people who don't see the greatness in Cassandra Clare, I think I'm going to move on to a different book. The next book that I read this year that I rated 5 stars is the first book of the Wheel of Time series, The Eye of the World. I absolutely loved this. I was really intimidated before I started it. I thought that it was going to be too much like Tolkien, and I thought that the way that he riffed off of it was really clever and intelligent, and I just fell in love with the world and the characters, and I had so much fun reading it. And like, it's a classic for a reason, and it's being turned into an Amazon show for a reason because it's excellent. So I'm looking forward to seeing what people who didn't like it said. So the first review is saying that this is an uninspired copy of Tolkien, and to that I say, look, the first book is very much based off of The Lord of the Rings, but that's kind of how the fantasy genre was built. It was built off of people riffing off of each other. And yeah, there are like certain plot points, like certain beats that are very similar, but none of it is exactly the same. If you're going to criticize him for using tropes that are the cornerstone of the fantasy genre in his first book when he's trying to get published, then shame on you. When Jordan was first writing this, he had a lot of trouble getting it published, so he had to morph his world into something that would be digestible to a larger audience so that he could prove to publishers that he would be able to sell this world. And then once he does that, starting in book 4, he really begins to expand this world and create this epic fantasy universe that's incredibly compelling. And yeah, it took him a while to get there because he needed to establish a reader base, but even this like really Tolkien-esque Eye of the World, like, it's still a lot of fun to read. Like, it's still an incredibly well-built world. It's just not the most unique thing ever, because in the 90s, writing fantasy, you weren't really allowed to do that. Oof. Had to take a brief intermission to talk to the construction guys, but I'm back and ready to continue to talk about The Eye of the World. Let's see. Let me preface this by saying very clearly that I mean no offense to Wheel of Time fans. I see your 1-star rating. Frankly, your opening sentence doesn't mean shit. Let's see. I hate this book somewhat passionately. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. I read the review and I am incredibly livid. Let's get started. So basically, if you have listened to the audiobooks, you'll know that at the end, Robert Jordan gives the same interview at the end of each book, and it's kind of belabored, but the point is, he's talking about what inspired him to make this book, and he was like, look, in the fantasy genre, like, one of the core tenets is like, you know, you have this boy on the farm and he's approached by this magician, this mage, who's like, we're going on an adventure because you're gonna save the world. And he's like, I can't wait to go on an adventure, like, this is gonna be great. And like, this like merry band of thieves like comes together and they're like so excited to like go on this like magical adventure. And Robert Jordan was like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you can go up to some kid who's like lived his whole life being a sheep herder and been like pretty content with his life, has a girl he knows he's gonna marry, and like has his like group of friends and is like pretty content with his life, and been told like, no, you have to like go up and like save the world and everything is on your shoulders and you have to do all of these things now. He was like, I just don't think that people from like a small town would be like super excited to go on this adventure. I think they would be stubborn and annoyed and really naive about the world. Like, this whole merry band of thieves idea is really unrealistic. And that's what he set out to do with the characters from Emond's Field in The Wheel of Time. There's a group of 5 of them, and they set out from this town, and all of them are incredibly stubborn, and like they're being taken out of the town against their will, and they all have these agendas that are very much against, like, I just want to go on an adventure, except Egwene, who's like, I do want to go on an adventure, but very quickly realizes that adventure is not the most important thing. For this person to be like, yeah, the main character is boring, it's because he's a 17-year-old boy who has like no idea what's going on and has been thrust into a world without his consent, and like has to like deal with the fact that suddenly he has to like roam the countryside alone, like sleeping under bushes because he's being chased by like minions of the Dark Lord. Like, yeah, he's not that interesting because he hasn't done anything yet. But like, the whole point is that you don't have this heroic person from the start. Like at the beginning, he was just a scared kid, and he grows over the books and he earns his power and the respect and authority. But he starts from really humble beginnings, just being like a scared kid. And I think that that's fine. Like being like, oh, this sucks because Rand is like an average 17-year-old and wasn't aged up 30 years to be super mature when he was whisked away from his like bucolic life. That's kind of shitty of you to be like, I hate this because he's like a teenager. Like that's kind of on you. And then like the same thing about this being like Lord of the Rings. If you're going to be such a stickler about like people not copying each other, then like don't read anything. Don't listen to any music. Don't read anything. Don't look at a single painting. Just like look at your white wall, because that's the kind of art that you can look at if you're really afraid of by accident consuming something that was inspired by something else once. Like, I'm over it. Then here's another one being like, yeah, like he's just a kid that finds out that he has to like fight the evil and everyone's unlikable. It's like, yeah, because Jordan was trying to do something more realistic in these first couple of books. He was like, you're not going to get someone that's like so heroic and so excited to save the world. You're going to get a group of scared 17-year-olds who don't know what the fuck is happening and are all really stubborn and think they know best because that's what 17-year-olds are like. And then they grow up over the course of the series. Like, I don't know. I just think like, if you go into a book with the expectation that like, oh, this is just like this is just like a dumb fantasy book that's Tolkien but worse, like of course you're not gonna like it. But like if you go into it being like, okay, this was inspired by Tolkien, I'm excited to see all of the times that he riffs off of him and I'm excited to see where this goes, then like that attitude completely shapes the reading experience, and you'll find that the Wheel of Time does grow into its own and does become something really magical and expansive and really impressive. But if you keep being a little butt about it, then that'll never happen for you. So get out of here. I'd say let's do one more. The next 5-star book that I read this year is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. Kazuo Ishiguro is one of the most celebrated authors in English. He's won the Nobel Prize. He's an exceptionally talented writer. And Never Let Me Go is my favorite thing that I read by him. The way that he uses his craft to weave this story is absolutely incredible. It's such a masterclass in writing, and it was just so incredible to read, and I loved every second of it. So let's see what people who disagree with me think. Okay, I can see Never Let Me Go being great for book clubs because it will generate a lot of discussion. Honey, I don't think this was written for book clubs, I'm gonna be honest. I'm so sorry, but this is not a Jojo Moyes book. I hate to say it. The writing style is very conversational, yeah, because most of it is written from the perspective of a child. So like, if you don't want it to be conversational, then don't read a book with a child at the center of it. There's a child on the cover. You should have guessed. So I like am getting really heated about this because clearly this person just didn't understand the premise of the book. And here's the thing. If you go into a book thinking that you're smarter than it, then first of all, you like, why are you reading it if you like are just going in with the perspective that you're better than it, which this person clearly did. And then they didn't get anything out of it because they were like, ugh, there was no big reveal at the end. Like I already guessed it all. Like guess what, that was like kind of the entire point. And if you'd gotten off your high horse for 1 second, 1 moment, you would have realized that. You would have realized the point of this is not for you to feel smart and guess the ending, but that was like the point of Ishiguro's story, and that it was actually incredibly well executed if you had stopped for 1 moment and used your little brain to think, I wonder what the point of this is. I wonder why he's making these decisions. I wonder why this incredibly skilled and talented artist who's been honing his craft for his entire life has made these very clearly intentional decisions. Maybe you would have caught on to the premise of the book then. Maybe. But instead, you were too busy thinking you were too good for this book. So I'm really sorry that this book didn't do it for you. But that said, I hope you never read anything interesting again and you stick to your Jojo Moyes and you have fun in your book club. Ooh, that got really catty there at the end. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, and I've definitely given some popular books 1-star reviews and like have felt pretty heated about them. With reading, obviously everyone has their own opinions about things, and people who give popular books a low rating, it's usually because they're not the target audience or they go in with a negative attitude. And that's what I found. Ooh, and I just, It was too much for me. I wish I could laugh at some of these, but these people just make me mad. I need to like shake it off and like remember that I don't know these people in real life and that these can still be my favorite books and I can still be happy about it. In conclusion, if you're looking for a serious read, read Never Let Me Go, and don't go in thinking that you're a pretentious twat. Go in and let the story be told to you, and it's just such a magnificent ride if you let it be. So read it. If you're looking for some high fantasy and you're already kind of experienced in the genre and you're not intimidated by a 900-page long book, read The Eye of the World. It's excellent. There's a show coming out in November. It's going to be so much fun. Would highly recommend that you read it. The world is excellent. The characters are so funny. And if you're not being like a fantasy snob, then it's like really not a problem. And then if you're looking for something lighthearted and crazy, then read some Cassandra Clare. If you go into these 3 favorite books of mine with reasonable expectations of what they are, then I think that you could really enjoy them too. As always, I really enjoyed having you here. It's been such a pleasure, even though I got very annoyed. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you, and I hope you guys had fun too. If you made it all the way to the end, comment a little sun emoji in honor of the little sun flare that has been gracing me with its presence for the duration of this video. And with that, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again next time.